This episode of the Plant Pod is sponsored by Pershore College. Pershore is a vibrant hub of learning nestled in the heart of Worcestershire, where education meets innovation in the fields of horticulture, animal welfare, and agriculture. At Pershore College, they understand that learning is a journey that goes beyond textbooks. Whether you're just starting your career or looking to enhance your skills, Pershore College offers a range of courses tailored to meet the needs of the modern professional. From state-of-the-art facilities to hands-on training in their stunning gardens and commercial nursery, students gain real-world experience under the guidance of expert instructors. But Pershore College isn't just about plants and animals, it's about growing people. It's about cultivating a community where students can thrive, with support and resources that extend well beyond the classroom. Their commitment to student success in a sustainable and innovative environment makes Pershore College the perfect place to plant your seeds for the future. So if you're ready to grow, to innovate and to lead in an ever-evolving field of agriculture, animal science and horticulture, then visit Pershore College online at www.wcuc.com/horticulture. Discover more about their programs and how you can become part of a community that's shaping the future of the natural world. Pershore College is where your future takes root. In this episode of the Plant Pod, I got a chance to sit down and chat with the CEO and founder of HERU, Nik Spencer. I first met Nik in January of 2024 at Futures Week at Pershore College. Nik came and gave a talk to the sustainable horticulture and agriculture technology students. Nik is a graduate of Morton Moral College, and in 1992 he set up his own business collecting waste newspapers. He quickly turned this business into one of the UK's leading animal bedding suppliers. I don't want to give too much away on this intro. Nik's story is truly amazing. The amount of businesses he has successfully started and then sold is unbelievable. Nik is a true inspiration to people, and students of the environment and of horticulture and agriculture can look up to Nik and see what they can become. This is Season 2, Episode 7 of the Plant Pod. Let's get into it. Nik, thank you for joining us here on the Plant Pod. Your time's really appreciated.
Oh, absolute pleasure, Ross. That's good to be with you. Good to see you again.
And you. So, for me, you came to Careers Week at Pershore College. That's where I first met you. And I thought your story was fascinating. That's why I wanted to get you on the podcast. So for people who are listening who wouldn't know you, who is Nik Spencer?
Nik Spencer. I've been in the waste industry for 30 years and set up the first commercial curbside recycling company in the UK, and then went on to build some other businesses after that. I guess myself, I'm really into agriculture and horticulture myself. I live on a farm and passionate about the environment. And so really went to agricultural college at Morton Moral.
Yeah.
And so my journey started in agriculture and then moved on into the recycling industry.
So starting in agriculture and then moving on to recycling, why did you choose to move on to recycling?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's probably a little bit by accident. So I say to young people is that it's always good to have your eyes and ears wide open, really, for opportunities. Because when I came out of Morton Moral, I started originally with a hedge cutting business, and then went on to win contracts with local authorities to mow the grass verges. In the wintertime, it was quiet. Or quieter, so started producing animal bedding for racehorses from shredded newspaper. And because I'd been studying animal husbandry and the agricultural engineering side of things, I thought it was quite fascinating that you could actually put a racehorse onto a product that the horse wouldn't eat. And then the racehorse trainer could control the diet much more closely and get much greater nutrients into the racehorse. And so that became very successful. But I couldn't get enough newspaper to make the bedding. So we started going around people's houses collecting newspaper. And that's really how we got into the recycling business, because that kind of outgrew the animal bedding business.
So that was in 1992, wasn't it?
Yes.
How old were you in 1992, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I was 22 at that point. Yeah, that's how old I was. So I'd been doing the agricultural contracting up until that point, and then going into the animal.
So collecting newspapers, how do you go from collecting newspapers to becoming one of the largest suppliers of animal bedding in the UK?
Well, it was just the demand for the product. It was extraordinary, really. We were supplying into new markets. Luca Kamani was one of the biggest flat racehorse trainers down there, and Nicky Henderson down in Lambourne, one of the most famous racehorse trainers on the planet. And so with their support, really, it just meant that we ended up just getting so much demand for the paper bedding. Rodney Powell in the event world and Mark Todd were big customers of ours as well. So it really, the animal bedding business grew, and then the collections business needed to grow to keep up with the animal bedding business. But then we started actually collecting more paper than we could make into animal bedding. So then we started selling that paper that we'd been collecting into the paper mills to make back into recycled paper again. And that business started to grow and started to gather some real momentum as well. Then we went on then to sell the collections business to Biffa in 1995.
So that sale must have been really happy for you at that time, because you started it from collecting newspaper, making it one of the largest animal bedding suppliers in the world, and then for a big company like Biffa to come in and buy it out.
Yeah, well, Biffa were really interested in the collections part of the business because I have to sort of remember at that point there was no real recycling going on. So Biffa were predominantly a landfill operator
Yeah.
And collections business, waste collections business. So the local authorities, although the landfill directive didn't come in until 1999, which is a directive to divert 50% of waste away from landfill by 2020, that was the directive. But Biffa were positioning themselves ready for that, and I guess they could see that coming down the line. So the idea of diverting material away from landfill was starting to gather a bit of momentum. So so that transaction with Biffa was a really important transaction for us at that time. You also have to remember that because the market wasn't established, it was a really interesting market actually, because the prices were quite volatile. They can still be volatile now, but the big highs were big highs during that period of time.
How much newspaper was you collecting on a weekly basis before that?
Well, at our peak, our trading operation was shifting not just paper, but paper, cardboard, plastics, ferrous, non-ferrous, so steel and aluminium products. And we were trading in around about 200 shipping containers a week of material. Wow. So it was a lot of material. That was at its peak time. That wouldn't be necessarily just material we were collecting. It would be material that was being collected by other authorities, and we would actually trade that material from other material recovery facilities as well as our own material recovery facilities.
So once you sold to Biffa, did you still have a hand in the animal bedding side of it, or did that go as well?
No, we kept the animal bedding operation, and we kept that going for a few more years. And then I think what happened during that market, it was a very, very, very competitive market.
Yeah.
I I I always describe racehorse trainers as being as flighty as their horses. It's a really interesting marketplace, and I think things just change. Wood shavings became more and more popular, and paper became less popular, I would say, over a period of time. So the wood shavings were offering the same in that the racehorse wouldn't eat it. But I think with paper, as you go through the operation, and we're seeing in the recycling industry, getting material of a high quality consistently is almost impossible in the waste industry.
Yeah.
Whereas with the wood shavings, they would be bringing in a consistent product, and that would give you a consistent outcome. As recycling became more and more developed, the contamination has just become worse and worse. So it's not really as viable now.
Yeah. And after you sold to Biffa, you started your second company.
Yeah,
So
that's right. So WCR municipal vehicle hire. So when the landfill directive came out in 1999, the local authorities had these recycling targets to meet. And the quick win was really to give everybody a plastic wheelie bin and an additional plastic wheelie bin for them to put their garden trimmings in.
yeah.
And so basically what happened is the fleet sizes of the local authorities pretty much doubled in a very short period of time. There was some capital out there through DEFRA, and I think it was RAP at the time, but certainly DEFRA, the department, were offering grants to local authorities or subsidies to be able to purchase vehicles. We recognised that there was a real opportunity for us, so we bought a lot of trucks, refuse vehicles and recycling trucks as well. And we built the fleet up, and we hired them to the local authorities who had the revenue but not necessarily the capital.
Yeah. So they would hire the vehicles from you to do the job that they needed to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so we bought some specialist bits of equipment, some turbo recycling trucks. That was the body that was on top of a sort of Dennis Eagle or a Mercedes chassis. But that would allow the clients, the local authorities, to move forward with their source segregation. So there's really two types of recycling. There was either commingling, where all your dry recyclables go into one container, or the source segregated, where you have lots and lots of boxes for all of your different recyclables. So depending on which authority you were, would depend on what vehicles we'd be hiring.
What was the size of the fleet at its maximum?
Well, we purchased 180 trucks. I mean, it was just a phenomenal growth, really, right up to 2006. So that was the sort of purchase over that period of time. We sold the business out to PFB in 2006. So I can't remember how many vehicles we had on the fleet at that point when we actually sold the business. But yeah, it was a incredible period because we were buying the trucks, and we also had a trading division of trucks as well. So we found that it was a really good model for us to only keep them for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then after 3 years, we'd sell them through another business that we set up to actually trade the recycling trucks, and we could then realize a better value for them at 3 years old. It meant that every truck we owned on the fleet was under a manufacturer's warranty as well. So it was a good model. It worked well.
Did you have to approach the local authorities, or did they come to you?
No, excuse me. We had to do a lot of marketing just to let the local authorities know we were there. It was really important. When we first started, we didn't start with new trucks, and we learned some really valuable lessons there. Reliability is just the absolute key. But what we did do is we built some amazing relationships early on with local authorities, with the trucks that did keep breaking down, because we would be there with them all the time. And then when we started bringing some new vehicles onto the fleet, they really appreciated that. And so, yeah, all about the quality of the vehicle, really.
Yeah, and when you sold that business, did you sell the other business with it, where you was reselling the trucks after 3 years?
Yeah, it all went together, because they were a well-established organization. The guy that owned that company had been in the vehicle hire business for a long time, not in the municipal market, but in the other market. Very well respected business, and so they had already got as well their sort of routes to market for their products that they were buying on their other fleet. So it made sense then for them to purchase the whole thing.
So once you sold that business, where did you go from there? Did you start another one, or did you move to HERU from then?
No, I bought a 37 acres over near Warwick,
Yeah,
and it was an old animal carcass incinerator, but it all sort of become defunct, I suppose would be the best way to describe it. And the Environment Agency had a particular interest in the site. It was a bit of a problem site, so it really needed a good cleanup. So we purchased the site and we did exactly that. We set about it and gave it a thorough cleanup. We demolished the buildings. We got planning permission there to build a 150,000 tons a year materials recycling facility, MRF, as they're called in the waste industry. And we wanted to try and build a business that would really concentrate on the quality of the outputs. As I was saying earlier, there was this constant issue with quality.
Yeah.
The paper mills were complaining about quality. The glass manufacturers were complaining. The steel and aluminium people were having the same issues. All this contamination getting into the recyclables. So we set our stall out and we went big. We called the company Pure Recycling. We wanted to actually live up to the name of the business.
Yeah.
So we invested heavily. I went over to America, Nashville, Tennessee, and found some technology over there which I really, really liked, that used near-infrared beams of light that would bounce up and down onto a conveyor, but could tell the difference between a perfectly roasted peanut and an over-roasted peanut. And it just lent itself perfectly to plastic separations, different plastics. So whether it's PET, which is like your water bottle, your Coke bottle, and HDPE, which is that opaque plastic milk bottle. So we brought that technology over with the UK company that we work with to build the MRF, and built this brand new facility. And then we won a 25-year contract with Samwell Council, and we won a long-term contract with Stratford-upon-Avon District Council, Rugby Borough Council, Windsor and Maidenhead. So it was quite a lot of authorities. And we filled the plant up with material, and we switched it on, and it was extraordinary. It was amazing the quality that we were getting out of the plant. We were very, very proud of it. So yeah, we built that business up, and then I sold that business. I bought the site in 2007, and we sold the business to Kia PLC in 2010.
So for you, you've took 3 businesses over from a period of 1992 to 2010. Started them from the beginning, developed them, and sold them. How many people can say that they've had 3 successful businesses and been able to sell them like that, all in the same industry as well?
Yeah, I don't know is the honest answer, Ross. I guess I'm very blessed. I think that everything moves at a pace in this industry. I say it's really interesting actually, because the waste industry, if you look back from where the Rag and Bone Man started collecting material, And then we went to an ash cart because we were collecting ash from people's homes because they were burning waste at home. Then we went to a refuse vehicle because the ban on the ban on the burning of waste. And really, that's as far as the development's gone. Okay, what we've done is we've asked the public to segregate different types of materials. And so we've put more trucks on the road to collect the different types of materials. And so we've diverted material away from landfill.
Yeah.
But what hasn't been addressed is there's a couple of elephants in the room, really. One is contamination, and the other is that only 91% of plastics aren't recycled. So, or even recyclable. And so there's this real issue. And on top of that, we're running around picking up garden waste, which is 55% water.
Yeah.
And we're making it into compost, and then we're putting it on the landfills as landfill cover. After all of the carbon intensity that's involved, food waste, 70% water, running around with more trucks doing 3 miles to the gallon, picking that up.
Yeah.
It's just a crazy, crazy situation. So we wanted to try and come from a different angle altogether. So I'm not sure that answers your question about how many people have sold businesses.
No,
I think I'm probably
does.
saying, sorry?
I didn't. Yeah, it does. I didn't expect you to know exactly like how many people. I just meant your success has been great, and it must make you
I've
really
been very
proud when you
lucky.
sit
Been
back
very
and
lucky.
think about it.
Yeah, I think it's just a great team of people all the time. Every single one of those businesses, attributed to an amazing team. I think I learned very early on that you just got to surround yourself with brilliance, really. It's so important. And when you come up with the idea as to what it is you want to actually achieve, then you've got to look out in the marketplace, and successful people will always attract more successful people as long as the product or the service or the product that you're working with is something that people believe in and people actually want to get behind.
Yeah.
And then I think having a really solid business plan is so important. And I think it's important also to be able to be prepared to flex that plan. So when you do your market research, you need to be able to make those changes. It's no good just ignoring what the client wants and what the customer wants or what the user wants, and just blindly going ahead with your business plan, having ignored what's going to make it successful, which ultimately is going to be the people you employ and your customers.
Yeah. And yeah, I totally agree with that 100%. So you've got something now that's been in development for a while. It's called the HERU. When you spoke at Pershall College, I was fascinated by it. So it uses anaerobic digestion, doesn't it? And
It uses pyrolysis, actually.
pyrolysis, sorry, yes.
Pyrolysis, yeah.
So how did the development of that come? Like from start to finish? How did you just sit there and think, right, this is what I need to create, this is what I need to do? How did that thought process go to start it?
Yeah, it's a good question, Ross. I think it came from that sort of 30 years in the waste industry. There was a couple of things really that were sort of catalysts. And one was the garden waste, running around with trucks doing sort of 3 miles to the gallon, picking up 55% water,
Yeah.
giving everybody another plastic container to put it in. And then it inevitably there was contamination going into the garden recycling bin, because people would put the odd plastic bag in there or the odd pram wheel or contamination. So then to be able to get that into a compost that could be sold back to the homeowner Very, very tricky. And it goes through this huge cycle in any, even if it does go to make compost and then goes into another plastic container, plastic bag, for it to be then delivered back to the homeowner. So what you've done is you've just taken it from one place where it could be made into compost, added a load of carbon to it, made it into compost at best, and then sent it all the way back to where it started. It's just ludicrous. In the old days, people used to have a compost heap and just make it themselves.
Yeah.
That was one of the first crazy things. And then the plastics one was really a big one. So the waste industry were faced with this dilemma. The local authorities had said to the public, you can recycle all your plastics, pots, tubs, and trays. The waste industry says, well, there's no market in the world for pots, tubs, and trays. Doesn't matter what color they are. There's just no market for those different polymer types. So the local authorities would say, well, if you want to win these contracts, you've got to take the pots, tubs, and trays. So the only way that the waste industry could get rid of the pots, tubs, and trays, because at that point you say to the authorities, well, we'll take them, but we're going to have to separate them off and we'll send them to incineration or landfill. No. Because they've got the recycling emblem on them, the public want to recycle them. That's fine, but they can't be recycled. So you need to be honest, and say that they can't be. And they may as well just put them in their black bin and just send them to incineration or to landfill. But instead, this carries on, and the waste industry then are faced with this situation where they need to sell the PET and the HDPE, but they've got to get rid of the pots, tubs, and trays, and it has to be classed as a recyclable. So they'll ship it to Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, China up until a few years ago, until the green fence came in. They would take out the PET and the HDPE, and then tragically, we've seen it, so much evidence that these rivers are carrying the pots, tubs, and trays in the main to the ocean. So the unintended consequence of the landfill directive was we swapped the landfill for the ocean. And that's what happens today at the rate of one refuse vehicle's worth per minute of every day.
Really? That's a lot. That's a hell of a lot.
It's alarming.
Yeah.
It's alarming. So the idea of the HERU, the Hybrid Energy Resource Unit, was that we wanted to create a piece of equipment that you could put it at your home, and you could place in that unit your plastics, your paper, your cardboard, your uneaten food, your garden trimmings, all of that material, except for metal and glass. It doesn't matter if you put it in by mistake, but you'll just have to take it out at the end. It'll wash itself, so it all comes out nice and clean. But everything else. So if you think about the paper, the cardboard, the uneaten food, the garden trimmings, all 100% renewable sources of energy. It's only the plastic element, the nappies and the plastic bottles that you put in that are not renewable. But remember that only 9% of plastics is recyclable. So 91%. So nappies are not recyclable. Disposable nappies. So you place that all within the HERU, and it heats it all in the absence of oxygen. So pyrolysis is the decomposition of organic matter in the absence of oxygen. So plastic is an organic matter, of course, and then it produces energy to heat the hot water of your house.
But how did the concept come about? Do you know what I mean? Like, did you sit there and just do like drawings in a book and think, right, this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. So this is how it's gonna work. Do you know what I mean?
I do, Ross. What I knew for certain was that we can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. We can't keep asking people to segregate. It doesn't matter how much you try and segregate the pizza box that's got food contamination, it won't be recycled. It doesn't matter how much you segregate the pots, tubs, and trays into these different elements, they will not be recycled. And so we can't segregate our way out of this. And we put this label called recycling on something, which is like a magic word that was supposed to make whatever you put in your recycling bin magically get recycled. But if there's not a sustainable market, a continual sustainable market, you won't get investment in to make a product recyclable, and it won't be recycled when you've put it into the container. So the concept really was, how are we going to change the way that we manage our resources? That was the first thing. And will we be running around with refuse vehicles around our streets in the next 30 years' time, or will there be a different way of approaching it? Then once you've got your sort of head around that, and the fact that waste is collected from homes, and at best, the best solution for waste is that it's taken to an energy from waste plant, it's incinerated, and then the energy that is created comes back to the house as electricity.
Yeah.
That's your best case scenario at the moment. So it's a bit like the garden waste, isn't it, really? You've collected it, you've then made it into compost and brought it back. Well, what about if you just took the calorific value that was in that resource and just left it at the house in the first place and just produced hot water? Because when you buy your electricity, chances are you're going to turn it into hot water, because you're going to have an immersion heater on, or you're going to have an air source heat pump or a ground source heat pump, and you're going to use the electric to produce hot water. So cut out the middleman and cut out the carbon intensive waste industry.
Yeah.
That is a broken industry. Then it's about how you're going to do it. And pyrolysis is something that's been about since the beginning of time. So if you took a tree and a dinosaur and you buried it for 5 to 9 million years, so it's starved of oxygen, it will decompose and it will turn into oil, gas, and char. And the HERU does exactly that, but does it in 5 hours instead of 5 to 9 million years. We've accelerated the process.
Yeah. And how did you figure that process out of how to do it so quickly?
Going and having a look at quite a lot of pyrolysis units, meeting Professor Bridgewater at Aston University. Tony Bridgewater had written a lot of papers on pyrolysis, so I was really interested to go and meet him and discuss it in some detail and discuss my concept. I wanted something that's going to be really easy to use. I wanted something that I could literally open the lid, I could put all the papers and plastics and cardboard and food and garden trimmings all mixed together with no pre-treatment, close the lid, press a button, walk away. And actually, Professor Bridgewater said to me, he said, that's going to be impossible, Nick. You will not be able to do that. And I asked him why, and he said, well, you're going to need to pre-treat it. You're going to need to dry it first. You're going to need to shred it. You're going to need to bring it in with an Archimedean screw into a chamber. I was like, oh, goodness me, this is not going to work. This isn't going to work. He's absolutely right, because, you know, the homeowner or the business, they're not going to want to do all that. It needs to be really simple. It needs to be as easy to use as a bin.
Yeah.
So I left there actually feeling super despondent about the whole situation. Anyway, I went and had a look at a few different plants, and I could see that they were all using really high temperatures on the outside of the chamber to try and get the energy into the core of the material. And so you've got really high temperature on the outside walls, and then you've got low temperature to no temperature in the middle. So I could see why these challenges were, and exactly what Professor Bridgewater had explained to me. So I got thinking about the Stephenson steam engine that was the rocket created by Stephenson. and how he was running these pipes through the chamber. And originally, I'd been introduced to Brunel University, specialists in heat pipes. And they had, I went down and met them, I explained what I was wanting to try and achieve. And Professor Jahara said, yeah, I think we can do something here. So we created a heat pipe, which was a chamber wall, actually. So originally had no pins coming up through. And that we experienced the same issues, really. We weren't getting the heat transfer through the material. So we then the principle of bringing these rods up through, so you get this perfect heat transfer with 100mm centers, then meant that it didn't matter where anything fell in the HERU, it was absolutely got a uniform temperature everywhere. And that was a big breakthrough. And that's what we patented. And we've got that patented in most countries around the world now.
So you could put it onto your house. You wouldn't need your bins, theoretically, and anyone could use it. So once it's done its job, do you still need a boiler for it to run through? Or like how does it work when it goes into the house?
Yeah, we say with the I suppose let's use the house as an example. It doesn't matter whether it's a house or a business, but so with a house, you'll be producing, let's say the average home, 68 square meters is the average size home in the UK, 2.4 people living in the average home in the UK. And they'll be producing about 1 ton of material per year of material that you can place with the HERU. And that 1 ton of material, 8 megajoules of energy per kilogram on the rate, what they call the rate mix, which is a government recognized mix. And those joules of energy will be enough to provide you with 45% of your hot water requirements all year round, because you're producing material in the summer when you've got your barbecues going and you're doing what you're doing in the summer, but you've still got a hot water requirement, but you won't have a space heating requirement. So the HERU will give you a base load, and then your existing system will then just top you up. But what's really important is you get this huge carbon reduction. So if you take an air source heat pump and a HERU, and you run them both on renewables, the HERU will be 98.94% less CO2e. So people talk about CO2, but CO2e is all of the global warming gases, including methane, which obviously waste produces a lot of methane. So the HERU is looking at the overall. So we had a life cycle assessment carried out by Ricardo, an independent life cycle assessment comparing the HERU technology to the waste industry. So not only are we 98% improvement over an air source heat pump, we also displace the waste industry, which is carbon intensive. Hence the reason we can give such a large percentage increase over an air source heat pump, which doesn't displace the waste industry.
Yeah. So for a business, are there any businesses now that are out there that are have implemented this?
So the first machines, we put the early adopter machines out, what we call the technical evaluation units. So one went to Wychavon District Council, one went to Rugby Borough Council, and one went to Hillers Farm Shop and Restaurant just up the road from us. And they ran for over 10,000 hours in the field. And we got a lot of data back from those machines. So then we captured that and discussed with the operators as to how they would like it to work, how they would like to interact with the machine. So we took all of that data and then we set about designing the pre-production machines. And so Severn Trent Water are taking the first pre-production machine this summer. And they're using it to process what they call the screenings, which are at the front end of the head of the sewage works. You get baby wipes and you get sanitary items and you get condoms and all that stuff coming in from the front end. So that gets screened off now and goes to deep landfill burial.
Yeah.
And they will screen that off and put that into the HERU and process that material. Then Siemens are taking a machine to their facility in Congleton. That will be the second machine. And then Perkins, who are an engine manufacturer, they've got a material that they'll be using to process through the HERU. And then we've got another two customers that are taking it, but I'm not allowed to say who they are at the moment. So, but yeah, we're building 5 machines which are going out in the first year, and then we're already taking orders for year 2, where we will be producing another 25 machines, and then we'll start really stepping up. We want to get up to 500,000 units per factory, but then set up different factories around the world to be producing 2 million units a year.
That's amazing. And off the top of my head, for schools, it would be great, wouldn't it? When you think about
Yeah,
it.
schools are producing a lot of material, aren't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, the food, material uneaten food, all of the sort of paper documents that are coming out of a school. Yeah, so there's a lot of material, and the horticultural world, of course, with the plastic
Plant
pots,
waste. Yeah.
the plant pots, which again, in a lot of cases can't be recycled, so they're sort of a problematic material. You get a lot of plastic wrapping that might have got some soil contamination on. So again, that's a really difficult product in the world of agriculture and horticulture. But yeah, the HERU will love that.
For plant nurseries and garden centres, yeah, it'd be absolutely brilliant for.
Yeah.
Especially if they're already using equipment like solar panels as well. Because there's a lot of nurseries now and garden centres that are having solar put in. So I mean, teaming it up with the HERU would make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a really interesting one actually, Ross, because when we went out with the all electric HERU to start the ball rolling, and then we did our market research. One of those things that I was talking about earlier about whether you really got to listen to your customers. So we thought that everyone would want all electric HERUs, but we were talking to some adult care homes, and they were saying, we want gas, not electric. Oh, right, okay. I hadn't seen that coming actually, because I thought we were all on this journey to all electric. And they said, well, at that time when we did the research, gas was 3 pence a kilowatt hour and electricity was 14 pence a kilowatt hour. And as much as we would like to decarbonise, we've got so much pressure, financial pressure, with the cost of labour going up and the cost of running a care home so expensive. And we've got to basically keep our energy costs down as low as possible. So we developed up the gas operated HERU. So we'll have a gas and an electric version. So to take up your point, the electric version running on the solar energy, you can be paying that energy into the HERU during the day, running the machine during the day, and paying that energy straight into your hot water system. So you can use the HERU as like your battery.
Yeah.
So instead of having a physical lithium battery, which again is a product that we haven't worked out how to recycle, so we're storing up another problem there. You just have a stainless steel tank full of water.
Yeah.
And you just use that as the battery. So the solar energy comes off into the HERU, and the HERU pays it into the hot water system.
It's absolutely amazing. The whole concept of it is. How many different, I know you said gas and electric there, but from where it started, how many different versions have you had? Have you had like a Mark 1, a Mark 2, a Mark 3?
We have, yeah. We did 5 different ones until we got to the technical evaluation. So Mark 1 through to 5. Mark 5.1 was the version that we put out as the 3 technical evaluation units. So we built them into trailers actually, so we could put the hot water system. So we could kind of pretend that we've got a whole house in a trailer, if you like, with the hot water system, with what might be a typical gas boiler inside. And then we could integrate our energy the HERU's producing into the system. And then we made them mobile, so it was nice and easy to move around. Then we went to the pre-production machine, which is what we have here now. That's gone through its EMC testing and its machinery and safety compliance directive testing. And then that machine then will go through further testing. So it will be a full CE and UKCA certified appliance.
Yeah.
So just like a washing machine or a dishwasher will go through all of this testing before it comes to market.
Yeah. And would the idea be to have obviously a lot of businesses using it, but also the residential use of it as well?
Yeah, I thought we were going to go into the residential market first. Another example of having to change based on the market conditions. And it was good actually. It was great advice. We had some advice from a few really key people in the industry, in the heating industry. Alistair Cumming, who was the director of research and development for BDR Thermea, who are the largest boiler manufacturers in Europe. He gave us some really good advice. And he said, you need to just go into the commercial market first, rather than trying to get into the residential market. A couple of reasons. Not least, it's more profitable to go into the commercial market than the residential market. But what you learn from your commercial machines will feed into the residential machine. So you have they call it the BOM, bill of material costs. Yeah. So the best way to describe this, as I found to describe it, is the first mobile phone that came out in 1984 was $10,000
Wow.
Which is the equivalent to $28,800 today. So you can't imagine too many people buying a mobile phone for $28,800, but people did. People high net worths, people that were in the banking industry or the trading industry, perhaps motor car dealers that felt that they didn't want to miss out on a trade. So, but it was businesses predominantly.
Yeah.
And so now you can buy a mobile phone for $700 in today's money. So that's come about by volume production. And so with the HERU, we've got to go through that same process. So we pitch into the commercial market first because the customers have got a more expensive product to dispose of and they're paying a lot of money to dispose of it. With a homeowner, they're just paying their council tax.
Yeah.
Make any difference to their council tax, whether they put a HERU in or not. It won't make any difference today. But I think going forward, as local authorities start to understand that this material is being assigned to the waste industry, and the waste industry is evidenced almost every day. We switch the television on or switch the radio on, and there's evidence of how the waste industry is not fit for purpose. Yeah. The materials are not being manufactured that can be recycled. There's so many products out there that can't be recycled. You look at chocolate bar wrappers, crisp packets, soft cheese packaging. The list goes on, doesn't it, of products that can't be recycled. So we've got to change.
Yes, it'd be a win-win, wouldn't it, really? All that stuff that we can't recycle, we can actually use to give ourselves energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we need to look at it like that. But so for the future of HERU, what is the goal? How many years before it's mass produced?
I think we have so many conversations about this, and we were, and I was very, very keen on this, to be manufacturing the HERU as a UK manufacturing business.
Yeah.
But it's become apparent that there's little appetite for investing in the UK manufacturing sector. So the model has really needed to be changed, and to license out the manufacturing to manufacture already established manufacturing facilities.
Yeah.
it gives us a much faster scalability, so we can scale up much faster than we thought initially. We'd also license out the sales of the HERUs as well, so we set up sales agents around globally around the world, and then we set up our licensed manufacturing facilities. That way, you can bring it to the market much faster. So I think that over the next 8 years, realistically, we'll build up to scale. Just to put that into context, I was reading James Dyson's book, and it really helped me actually, because I think I probably got myself feeling a little bit down about how long it's taken. 10 years, I guess, in the making. And in his book, he explained that it took 12 years to bring from prototype to production the bagless vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
And the vacuum cleaner had already been invented before by Hoover. And so the concept of taking your rug or your carpet outside and beating it with a stick, and instead of doing that, leaving it in the house and using this newfangled device that you moved around, was established by Hoover. And with the HERU, it's a bit like that. Today we just walk outside with our bag of material, we place it into the bin, and we trust that that's going to be dealt with. We don't have to see it anymore. So as long as we don't see it, we don't really, we see it on television, but I think we've seen it so much, we've become almost a bit, I wouldn't say numb to it, because we all know it's happening, but there's no alternative. So what else can we do? And so with the HERU, using that concept, we've got to stop people taking the carpet outside and beating it with a stick first, and then we've got to ask them whether they'd like to use a new device. As to whether they want to make this change. And I think people have got a real desire for change, but it's a big hurdle.
I think people are noticing it more and more now with recycling. Where say a decade ago, it was like blind to the public, where it's becoming more and more obvious now. Does that make sense?
I hope so, Ross. I hope so, and I do believe that that's the case. You get one or two companies who are real forward thinkers. And the ones I've said, the early adopters, the NHS, we won a framework agreement with the NHS. Now the NHS are really into the process of pyrolysis, but being able to work out how you can get the facilities management people, the clinicians, the people that are operating the waste today within the NHS. You've got so many fractions within one organisation to be able to convince that this is a better solution, because at the moment it's super easy to put stuff in a bin. Super easy. It's super easy to put stuff in the HERU, but there's risk attached to it because it's change. And the one thing I've seen in the UK, which does worry me, when you think about years ago, we were pioneers in so many ways. We loved to be able to lead from the front, but I'm seeing that much more in America now than I'm seeing here in the UK, sadly. There's so much desire for new technology over in the US, and I'd love it if we could be that, if we could be brave and be more pioneering. That would be just such a great step.
Take that leap forward.
Yeah, I think so. It just feels a little bit, there are companies out there doing it, but it's not in the main. In the main, it's much easier for us to keep doing the same thing. And I think
Stuck in our way.
Mentality is to keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result.
And it's not going to happen. We're just stuck in our ways.
Yeah, sadly.
What would your advice be to anybody who wanted to get into the recycling industry?
Yeah, that's another good question. I think the recycling industry, there's some really good recycling going on. If you look at the steel industry, metal, ferrous, non-ferrous, and glass, and the paper industry, recycling, the paper, there's really good, solid businesses, well established, doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
They can't deal with contamination, of course. So that's where this sort of stumbling block comes in. And they can only deal with products that they can actually process. So I think anyone coming into the recycling industry, I'd be choosing, for me personally, based on life cycle assessments, because I think you've got to look at science and say, right, this is the career path I'd like to take. Is it better for the environment than another option? And if it is, then I would want to make a career in it, and I would want to take what's good and make it great.
Yeah.
But I think that if I was encouraging people to go into the sector, I'd be quite hard and on the industry to ensure that you were doing something that was actually, because I think a lot of young people, they really, and this is what I love about young people, is that they've got a real passion to make the change. So I think the change will happen. This change and this fear factor that I was talking about earlier, I think as the next generation come through, they can see our generation and perhaps my parents' generation as to what a holics we've made of the whole situation. I mean, we've created a mess since 1970s when the plastic started coming in. I have to say, plastics have got a big place to play. PPE and keeping food, so the shelf life lasts longer, so we have less food waste, and all these different things are important. It's how we deal with it afterwards. So my advice would be go into it with your eyes wide open and go into it backed with some science.
And I've got one more question before I let you go. So on this season, I want to ask everybody the same question at the end, just to see what their different answers are. So Nick, we have colonized Mars and we're ready to go. We want you to come with us. Number one, can you bring a HERU with you? Number two, you get one fruit, one vegetable, and one flower. What would you bring?
So I'm going to ask you just to repeat the first bit because it just broke up a little bit. So we're going on, where are we going? Where are we off to?
So we've colonized Mars.
Okay.
We want you to come with us.
Yeah.
Can you bring a HERU with you?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to pick one flower, one vegetable, and one fruit.
Right.
What would you pick?
So
You're going to
yes,
be growing it.
Hey?
You'll be growing the flowers, the veg, and the fruit. So it'll be a flower seed, a fruit seed, and a veg seed.
Okay. So I would go, yes, we would take a HERU to Mars with us.
Yeah.
For certain, because we do not want to be creating the same mess up there as we've been creating down here.
Definitely
So,
not.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
Start as we mean to go on.
Start as we mean to go on. So we would definitely take with us a HERU with some solar panels, and we would filter the water off the rainwater off the roof.
Yeah.
And so we can be running the HERU from the sky.
Yeah.
So that would be good. And then I reckon I love roses.
Okay.
So I think I'll be I think I'd be taking roses. They definitely brighten up your life, don't they? And I think the vegetable, that's a really good one, that is. I love cauliflower cheese.
I do myself.
Yeah, I'm going to be taking a collie, and
Brilliant.
I'm just going to be hoping that someone else is taking some cheese with them.
Yeah.
And then
Mars cows.
sorry.
We can have Mars cows.
Yeah,
We can
Mars
make our
cows.
own
That's
cheese.
it. That's what we'll do. We'll have some Mars cows. Yeah, this sounds good. And then a fruit. I mean, I'm sort of like apples bouncing into my mind. But the reason I'm sort of hesitating is because I'm going to need some figs to make the sticky toffee pudding.
Oh, yes.
So I think I think it's going to have to be figs because I don't know whether I could have a life without sticky toffee pudding.
It sounds good to me. I'll room next to you then. If that's what you're going to be making, I will be there. Yeah. Nick, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
I really do appreciate it.
Not at all. Not at all. No, it's been great talking to you. Great. Thanks very much for the great questions.
Thank you.
You take care.
And you.
Bye.